At my funeral, I found my boyfriend, with whom I had been in a relationship for 2 years, and my best friend laughing freely. In the corner, Sebastian, my sworn enemy who had been against me since childhood, was crying bitterly with his head in his hands. I sat up in shock as if coming back from the dead. It turns out that all these years have been lived in vain. Suddenly, a line of glowing words appeared in front of me. Dear, watch an advertisement to revive and be reborn. After watching a 25-second advertisement for melatonin, I was reborn and went back to my senior year of high school. The moment I regained my sight, I saw Sebastian, who was lying beside me, looking at me and smiling. Immediately, tears streamed down. In a second, Sebastian returned to his previous unruly look. When he turned and saw me crying, he panicked again. No, Grandma. I didn't bully you. Why are you crying? I didn't want to cry either, but the scenes from my previous life were too glaring. I wiped away my tears and looked at Sebastian, who was looking for tissue paper for me. I directly threw myself at him. He was hugged by me. His hand instantly froze in midair and his ears turned red immediately. Ophelia, what are you doing? After a long while, he realized that I was a bit abnormal and was about to push me away. I tightened my hold on him again. Can you stay still and let me hold you for a while? After I finished speaking, Sebastian really didn't move until I let go of my hold on him. After letting go of him, I blinked at him. He realized and then turned and ran away. Looking at his back, I had mixed feelings. Sebastian and I had an arranged marriage since we were children. But I didn't like him. Because ever since I could remember, my unreliable stepmother told me that my father arranged an arranged marriage between me and Sebastian just for profit. At first, I didn't believe it. Until I really saw Sebastian's family assets. Coupled with my stepmother repeating in my ear year after year that if I married Sebastian, I would lose my freedom. So I began to hate Sebastian. When I saw him, I would speak harshly to him. At the beginning, Sebastian would still patiently explain to me. But I wouldn't listen no matter what. Later, when I was in junior high school and in the same class as Sebastian, he also became rebellious. When I scolded him, he would also reply unceremoniously. Since then, Sebastian and I have become people who can't stand each other. In high school, I made a very good friend named Ivy. But Sebastian didn't let me play with her and said she wasn't a good person. I still remember that day. I firmly shook off Sebastian's hand and told him, what you don't like, I like. From then on, Sebastian never came to find me again. And through my so-called good friend, I had my first love in my life. After the college entrance examination, when I learned that Sebastian was going to school in City A, I applied to a school in City B. The two cities were more than 2,000 kilometers apart. I never saw that boy who made me unhappy every day again. In my sophomore year, I got my wish and broke off the engagement with Sebastian. And I died that afternoon because of a car accident. It was only after I died that I learned that my so-called good friend Ivy was actually my stepmother's own daughter. And my beloved boyfriend Oscar was an actor she hired with a lot of money. My life was like a joke. And the only redemption in this joke was pushed away by me with my own hands. Ophelia, do you want to go to the cafe after school? I'll introduce a friend to you. My train of thought was interrupted. Ivy appeared in front of me. I frowned and looked down at my phone. October 24, 2015. Today is the day I met Oscar. Seeing that I didn't speak, Ivy took my hand. Ophelia, come with me. There will be a super handsome guy coming this afternoon. If you don't come, you will be disappointed. I held back the urge to roll my eyes and blinked innocently. How handsome? Is he more handsome than Sebastian? If he's not as handsome as Sebastian, I won't go. Ivy was about to respond. But when she heard Sebastian's name, she was stunned. After a long time, she asked, Ophelia, you don't like Sebastian. Why mention him? I flipped open the textbook in front of me and leaned on the bench. Who said I don't like Sebastian? As soon as I finished speaking, Ivy seemed panicked and quickly spoke ill of Sebastian. Ophelia, how can a person like him deserve your love? He bullies you every day. I can't stand it. Are you confused because of a fever? After Ivy finished speaking, she reached out to touch my forehead. I pushed her hand away in disgust. Who has a fever? You are the one with a fever. How can Sebastian not deserve my love? I tell you, Ophelia, like Sebastian the most in this life. I will only marry him. As soon as I finished speaking, there was the sound of a broken glass at the door. I looked over and it was Sebastian, who had just come back from getting water. In an instant, my face flushed to the back of my ears. A sense of shame welled up in my heart. Subconsciously, I darted under the desk and kept praying in my heart, he didn't hear it. He didn't hear it. He didn't hear it. Under the desk, I saw a pair of Nike shoes striding towards me. There was a somewhat amused voice from Sebastian above my head. Ophelia, what are you doing? I bit my lip and gently patted my own face. Then I pretended nothing had happened and responded, nothing. I dropped my pen. I'm picking up the pen. Haha. As soon as I finished speaking, another head appeared under the desk. The moment I met his gaze, the blush on my face that had just subsided came up again. Sebastian smiled gently. Did you find the pen? I wanted to cry but had no tears. Then I fled in a panic. For the whole afternoon after that, I subconsciously avoided Sebastian. When school was over, I took my school bag and darted out of the classroom like a mouse. At night, I hid under the covers. When I thought of Sebastian, my heart beat rapidly. It was a feeling I had never had when I was with Oscar before. I touched my chest and murmured to myself, this should be love. The next morning, I was walking towards the classroom with soy milk in my hand. I was still being entangled whether I should avoid Sebastian today. As a result, without paying attention, I bumped into someone. The soy milk spilled all over me. I looked at the person in front of me. There was also soy milk on his body. I subconsciously apologized. The other person seemed to have expected it. He took out a pack of tissue paper from his pocket. Classmate, I should say I'm sorry. You wipe it first. The familiar voice sounded. I looked up and met Oscar's gaze. Why did I still meet him? At this moment, Ivy didn't know where she popped out from. I instantly understood everything. So this is acting. Oh, Oscar, why are you here? Wait, what happened to Ophelia? I frowned and didn't want to watch Ivy acting hypocritically here. I was about to leave. But a figure blocked me one step ahead. Why are you so careless? I looked up and met Sebastian's beautiful eyes. When Ivy saw Sebastian, her eyes lit up. She hurriedly said with a smile, it's okay. Let Oscar take Ophelia to deal with it. Let's go back to class first. I rolled my eyes. She was really working hard. She still wanted to create a space for me to be alone. How could I be fooled this time? No need. No need. Before I could finish speaking, Sebastian had already refused him first. He took my hand and led me away. Sebastian walked very fast. I could only trot to keep up. Looking back, I saw Ivy staring at me viciously. When she saw me looking at her, she immediately put on a smiling face again. So disgusting. Sebastian took me all the way downstairs. I shook off his hand and squatted on the ground, panting. Why don't you play with your good friend anymore? Sebastian stood beside me with his arms crossed. I waved my hand and stood up from the ground. Good friend? Who said she is my good friend? Sebastian was a little amused and looked at me. Who was it that said 2 days ago that Ivy is Ophelia's best friend in this life? No one can separate us. He repeated what I had said in the tone I had used before. So petty. He actually remembered this matter until now. But thinking about it, I did do such a thing. I also said that I will never like you in this life. I muttered in a low voice. He suddenly leaned closer. What did you say? I bit my lip and stomped on his foot hard. Nothing. After saying that, I turned and left. After I went to the toilet and wiped the porridge off my body, I got up and was ready to go back to the classroom for class. As soon as I walked out of the toilet door, I saw Oscar's familiar figure again. When he saw me, he immediately walked towards me. He had already changed into a set of clothes. Then he took out a pack of tissue paper from his pocket again. Before I could speak, He had already taken out a piece of paper and was about to help me wipe the wet places on my body. "I'm sorry, classmate. I was too careless. I didn't have time to apologize properly to you just now. Let me wipe it clean for you." I jumped back like a spring and distanced myself from him. His hand froze in place. He awkwardly pushed up the glasses on the bridge of his nose. This action instantly awakened my previous memories. In the past, when Oscar was angry, he would subconsciously push his glasses. At first, I didn't understand. Later, after I found out, as long as his hand touched his glasses, I would rush towards him like a pug and keep apologizing. Strangely enough, I didn't like him at that time. But I still unconsciously tried to please him. But just now, I understood. I was gaslighted by him. No. It was my carelessness. "I still have class. I'll go first." Suddenly enlightened, I hated Oscar even more. I lifted my foot and ran away in one go. Oscar still wanted to reach out to stop me, but I had already disappeared. Back in the classroom, just as the bell rang for class. This class was math. I saw that there was a different person sitting next to me. It was Ivy. When she saw me, she smiled and pulled me to my seat. I sat in my seat. Ivy immediately came closer. "Ophelia, I'll attend this class with you." "Hee hee." I frowned. "Who wants to attend class with you? You'd better go back. If you are here, I can't listen to the class well." She didn't seem to notice the impatience in my tone. She actually hugged my arm and rubbed against it. "Oh, it's just one class. Ophelia can learn it even without listening." I'm sweating bullets. If this was in my previous life, I would have been so proud by this sentence. I opened my mouth, but the teacher had already stepped into the classroom first. "It's too late." I put my hand on my forehead and stopped talking. This is a math class. High school math is extremely difficult. Missing one class may require half a day of catching up after class. I picked up my textbook and concentrated on listening to the teacher. Ivy was not happy and started to find topics to talk to me. "Ophelia, you scared me to death this morning. Fortunately, you weren't scalded. Otherwise, I would be so distressed." I was silent. "Oh, did you see the boy you bumped into this morning? Isn't he extremely handsome? He is the boy I wanted to take you to meet yesterday." I took a deep breath and showed a Nike smile. "So handsome. If you like him, do you need me to help you chase him?" Her smile froze on her face. After hesitating for a while, she ignored my question and continued, "His name is Oscar. He is a transfer student in class 8. Last time when I chatted with him and mentioned you." "Teacher, sorry. I didn't understand this question. Can you explain it again?" I raised my hand and pointed to the example in the textbook. The teacher is an old man of some age. Perhaps it was the first time someone asked a question in class. He smiled begratified. "Okay, this, classmate Ophelia. Praise. The learning spirit is very worthy of praise. Regarding this learning spirit, we have to start from 100 years ago." I stared at the teacher in astonishment. He went from math to history. Until the end of the class, I didn't get the question I wanted to hear. After class, I watched the teacher fly out like the wind. Seeing this, Ivy immediately interrupted, "Ophelia, don't you know? Let Oscar teach you." "Oscar's math is?" Ivy had only said half of her sentence when a math textbook appeared in front of me. It was Sebastian. He yawned and sat in front of me. "Which question?" I didn't react. "Ah? Which question didn't you understand just now?" I understood what he meant. "I opened the example just now." His beautiful fingers landed on the textbook. He picked up a blank piece of paper and quickly started to solve the problem. Ivy was stunned and also came closer. After Sebastian finished writing the problem, he moved the paper in front of me. On the white paper, Ivy clearly wrote all the solution ideas for that problem. He didn't even need to explain. I could understand the solution to this problem. He stretched and patted my head. "Wait for me after school tonight and we'll go home together." I nodded. He got up to leave. Ivy suddenly stood up from the chair. "Sebastian, I also have a question I don't understand." Can you teach me? Teacher Chen's office is just downstairs. Sebastian refused her without looking back. Ivy seemed to freeze. Behind her, my heart was pounding. How on earth did I manage to hate Sebastian so much in my previous life? After school, as soon as I packed up my things, Sebastian was already waiting for me at the door. I smiled and walked towards him. Ivy popped out again. Ophelia, my stomach hurts so much. I feel so uncomfortable. I ignored her and continued walking towards Sebastian. Ivy directly grabbed my hand. Ophelia, I really feel so uncomfortable. I was extremely speechless. Does treating others as fools when they are not angry? If you feel uncomfortable, go see a doctor. Why are you pulling me? Am I a doctor? Ivy let go of my hand. Then she cried. I was both amused and annoyed. Sebastian walked over. I'll take you there. I didn't understand. Ivy looked up. Ah, you are not feeling well. I'll take you to the hospital. Sebastian repeated it again. Ivy heard it and replied delicately with a yes. Then she bypassed me and left with Sebastian. I was stunned. After 2 seconds, something seemed to twitch in my heart. It was a bit uncomfortable. After taking a few deep breaths, I looked at the people gradually leaving in the classroom and followed the crowd and left. On the way home, I couldn't help kicking the stones at my feet. As a result, with one hard kick, I sprained my foot. My pent-up emotions erupted instantly at this moment. I directly sat on the ground. What the hell? Why am I so unlucky? It's all Sebastian's fault. Didn't he say we would go together? You liar. In this life, I will also make you unable to have the one you love. Unable to have the one you love? I was startled. Looking up and seeing Sebastian, I was even angrier. Regardless of the pain in my foot, I got up and left. Sebastian followed. I gave him a blank look. Stay away from me. He raised an eyebrow. Looking at my limping figure, he stopped. I was amazed. No explanation, right? Fine. I continued to walk quickly. Perhaps because I was doing 2 things at once, I didn't see the sign prohibiting passage. Below was a sewer covered with iron sheets. When I realized it, I had already been pulled back by Sebastian. Don't you want your life? Can't you see such a big sign in front? I realized belatedly and then my eyes turned red. Don't care about me. I won't talk to liars. Even if I die today and jump down from here, I won't talk to you. Sebastian was amused by me. But I was extremely angry. Seeing that he had no intention of explaining, I turned and left. After taking 2 steps, I was pulled back again. Yes, yes, yes. I am a liar. Hearing his words, half of my anger disappeared. But I still didn't intend to talk to him and walked forward on my own. But because of my sprained foot, I had to be careful with every step. Sebastian suddenly walked quickly in front of me and squatted down. Get on. I'll carry you on my back. I felt a little secretly delighted inside. But I hadn't completely dissipated my anger from just now. I cleared my throat twice and said in a sarcastic tone, is this back only for me or for others as well? Sebastian chuckled, get on. Only for you. Getting the satisfactory answer, I jumped on. He carried me and walked slowly. I brought my mouth close to his ear. Don't you want to explain? His tone was calm. For an unimportant person, is it necessary? I sneered and tightened my hand around his neck. She is not necessary. But you stood me up today. Sebastian stopped and looked back at me. At the moment our eyes met, my face blushed again disobediently. I thought Sebastian would solemnly tell me that nothing had happened between them. But instead he asked me, Ophelia, have you been possessed? The air instantly became quiet. The corners of my mouth almost dropped to the ground. Okay, I'm not joking. I took her to the gate of the mental hospital and then I came back. Pfft, I burst out laughing. Sebastian also laughed. He carried me on his back and walked forward like this. In a trance, I seemed to see our future. He walked very slowly and made a 5-minute journey last for 20 minutes. When we arrived at the door of my house, I saw a familiar figure. Ophelia, why are you so late today? Oh, Sebastian is also here. It was my stepmother, Arya. When she saw me getting off Sebastian's back at that moment, the smile on her face couldn't hold anymore. I nodded politely to her. Just as I was about to go home, Sebastian took my hand. At 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'll come to pick you up. I was a little puzzled. Isn't tomorrow Saturday? He added, to tutor you. I agreed with a smile. After watching him leave, I entered the house. After changing into slippers, Arya mysteriously came up to me. Her obsequious smile made me uncomfortable all over. Ophelia, why did you come back with Sebastian today? It's not that Mom is saying. It's better for you to stay away from him. Have you forgotten what I told you before? I continued doing my own thing and responded perfunctorily, it's been too long. I can't remember clearly. She didn't give up and came closer again. Ophelia, do you want to live under surveillance all your life? I nodded, yes. Is there anything else? If not, I'll go upstairs first. After saying that, I walked directly to my room. After doing some homework, I felt thirsty, so I went downstairs to pour a glass of water. When passing by Arya's room, I heard some movement inside. Driven by curiosity, I leaned closer. Mom, I must be with Sebastian. I can't let that bitch Ophelia take him away. It was Ivy's voice. Mom knows. I don't know what's wrong with this little bitch today. She suddenly got close to Sebastian. But it doesn't matter. As long as you arrange it well on your side, I will let Victor break off the engagement between Ophelia and Sebastian at that time. Then she won't be able to marry even if she wants to. I looked at the boiling hot water in my hand and smiled. Why does she think that my dad will favor outsiders? At the beginning, my dad married Arya just to find a companion for me. I know better than anyone that my dad not only doesn't love Arya. After getting along these years, he has long known what kind of person Arya is. It's Arya's family who are stupid. They really don't think that all of us rich people are brainless fools, right? Except for me in my previous life. I carried the water and quietly returned to my room. The next morning, I got up and tidied up at 8 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, I went out on time. But I didn't see Sebastian. Instead, I saw Ivy and Oscar. I slammed the door shut. There was a knock on the door outside. Ophelia, we specially invited you to go to the library together. Oscar's math is very good and can help you. I responded impatiently, no need. After a while, there was the sound of a motorcycle stopping outside. I opened the curtain and saw Sebastian. I ran very fast and ignored Ivy and Oscar standing aside. 10 minutes later, I appeared at the gate of the library. But I didn't bring a single book. I looked at Sebastian's school bag behind him and then at myself. It turns out that I am the clown. Where are the books? I wanted to cry but had no tears, forgot to bring them. I can't possibly say that I thought what you said about going to the library yesterday was just an excuse. In fact, you wanted to go on a date with me, right? Sebastian looked at my face carefully. Finally, he reached out and his finger gently slid across my cheek. Well, the foundation is a bit thick. Pay attention next time. In the library, Sebastian sat next to me. He took out the math book and started explaining problems. I listened sleepily for the whole morning until I saw the pointer of the library clock pointing to 12. I picked up my coat and was ready to run away. Sebastian wanted to pull me but I dodged. Classmate Sebastian, I want to eat. I'm really hungry. Let me go. After taking a taxi and returning home, I could smell the smell of spare ribs from outside the door. If there are no surprises, I can see my busy dad today. Opening the door, my dad was indeed sitting on the sofa. In the kitchen, Arya was busy. TSK, she can only show off her cooking skills. I threw down my coat and threw myself into my dad's arms. Speaking of which, since I was with Oscar, my dad has been completely disappointed in me. So I didn't see him again until I died. Dad, I miss you so much. I rubbed against my dad's arms. He was a little stunned. Then he patted my head. What do you want to buy? As soon as I heard it, I pouted. Can't I act coquettishly with you if I don't want to buy something? As soon as I finished speaking, Arya brought up the last dish from the kitchen. It's time to eat. Come quickly. Ophelia, there are also your favorite spare ribs today. I took my dad and got up and walked to the dining table. During the meal, I kept adding food to Victor. On the side, Arya had no place to put food even if she wanted to. In my previous life, I not only didn't listen to Victor but also opposed him everywhere. As a result, my own dad was disappointed in me. This time, pleasing my own dad is the second step of my counterattack. Oh, Ophelia has grown up and knows how to be filial to your dad. Arya opened her mouth inopportunely. I ignored her. My dad smiled politely. During this meal, Arya ate extremely awkwardly. She couldn't get a word in and couldn't pick up any food. After eating, I climbed upstairs. Then I suddenly remembered that my phone was still on the sofa. So I turned back. My dad and Arya were still eating. When I was almost downstairs, I heard Arya's voice. Victor, I think Ophelia is a bit strange today. She should have something to ask you. I stopped and sat directly on the stairs. I want to see what this Arya is going to do. My dad was still eating. Arya continued. Victor, I won't hide it from you anymore. Ophelia told me yesterday that she really doesn't want to marry Sebastian. She doesn't dare to tell you herself. So she asked me to tell you. After my dad heard it, he frowned but still didn't speak. At that time, my dad also knew that I hated Sebastian. But he always thought that as long as the engagement wasn't broken off, we would still make up as before. He always yielded to softness rather than hardness. Perhaps he also guessed that I was acting coquettishly with him today to say this matter. So he didn't refute. Seeing this, Arya put down her chopsticks and continued to add fuel to the fire. Oh, Victor. Although Sebastian is very excellent, there is nothing we can do if Ophelia doesn't like him. Who told you that I don't like him? I couldn't listen anymore and got up and walked out. She and Ivy are really mother and daughter. They say the same things. Arya saw me and her face turned livid. Ophelia. Why did you come down? I sneered and sat next to my dad. This is my own home. I can go up if I want and go down if I want. Is it your turn to control me? Arya's face became even more ugly. After all, I had never talked to her like that before. Before this, my relationship with her was still passable. Ophelia. And, I never told you that I don't want to marry Sebastian. She called my name. I interrupted her and continued. As soon as my dad heard this, he immediately beamed and took my hand. Ophelia, do you really think so? Dad thought you really didn't like that child from the Sebastian family. I held my dad's hand back. Dad, I wrongly blamed you before. I thought you arranged this arranged marriage for me for your own sake. So many people want to marry into the Sebastian family, but I am not satisfied. I am so damnable. After saying that, my dad and I hugged and cried. Seeing this, Arya immediately found a reason and slipped away. But how could I let her go just like that? Arya, you also heard what I said, right? Don't make decisions for me anymore. Otherwise, this mouth of mine might say something. Arya stopped, looked at me, nodded, and then ran away. After solving everything, I got my phone and went back to my room satisfied and took a nap. When I woke up again, it was already 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I went downstairs thirsty to find water to drink and found that there was already a glass of poured water on the coffee table. Perhaps I became smarter and didn't pay attention to that glass of water. Instead, I took a new glass of water from the water dispenser. As soon as I took a sip after filling the glass with water, my phone rang. I took 2 more sips and was about to answer the phone. But just after taking 2 steps, my vision actually became a little blurry. I forced myself to walk to the coffee table. My vision became more and more blurry. I picked up my phone. The caller showed Sebastian. Before I could answer it, I lost consciousness. At the last moment of losing consciousness, I panicked. Am I dead again? Can I still be revived by watching melatonin advertisements this time? The moment I regained consciousness, I subconsciously touched my body. Fortunately, it's still solid. But when I looked again, the decoration style here was like a hotel style. I looked at the white sheet on my body and then found that the clothes on my body were gone. There were only 2 pieces of cloth left that could cover my shame. I opened my eyes wide and found a man lying beside me. After seeing his face clearly, I was almost scared to death. Oscar. I pulled the quilt and wrapped myself in the quilt and ran to the corner. Oscar got up when he heard the sound. When he saw me in the corner, he smiled. Sorry, I'm forced by life. Please bear with me first. I realized it was bad. Since Oscar was here, it proved that this matter was definitely inseparable from Ivy and her mother. I had already seen how ruthless their methods were in my previous life. Perhaps because I didn't fall out with my dad and my relationship with Sebastian has also eased. Now I may have watched the advertisement again. Playing dirty tricks, right? What are you after? If you want money, I also have it. I am much richer than Ivy. Let me go and I will give you double. Oscar's eyes were bright. Then he sighed, although that's the case, it's too late. I won't do things that betray my employer either. I gritted my teeth and my hand trembled unconsciously. What the hell? People who are greedy for money are still playing the loyal card. Do you deserve it? If I'm not wrong, Ivy wants to ruin me. In the next second, there was a violent impact sound at the door. I was completely panicked and had already imagined tomorrow's headline news. Oscar stood up and said to me as he walked, "Sorry, Miss Ophelia." I also. Bang, the door was opened and Oscar was knocked down with one punch. I looked up and it was Sebastian. There were still fine beads of sweat on his forehead and his eyes were bloodshot. It seemed that he had just cried. When I saw him, I, who didn't think it was a big deal at first, immediately had red eyes. He quickly walked towards me and hugged me into his arms. "Ophelia, I'm sorry. I'm late." I was carried home by Sebastian like a princess. After Oscar was taken away by the police, he immediately showed his true colors and told everything. When my dad learned about this incident, he actually refunded the plane ticket to Country M. When I saw my dad, I was lying beside Sebastian and eating cake. When my dad saw me like this, he first patted Sebastian on the shoulder and then collapsed with relief. "Thank you, Sebastian. If it weren't for you, I really don't know what would have happened to Ophelia today." As soon as my dad finished speaking, the door opened again. "Is my daughter-in-law okay?" Before seeing the person, the voice was already heard. It was Sebastian's mother. At the moment I saw his mother, I was still amazed. Counting the previous times, I haven't seen his mother for almost 5 or 6 years. It has to be said that Sebastian's mother is really beautiful. The more you look at her, the more beautiful she is. I can't resist beautiful sisters. I put down the cake in my hand and responded with a smile, "Aunt Sebastian, I'm fine. Look, I'm still lively now." Afraid that she wouldn't believe it, I got off the sofa and jumped twice. Seeing this, Sebastian's mother patted her chest. Then she pulled me to her side and hugged me tightly. "Oh my little baby. It's good that you're okay. You almost scared Aunt to death." After chatting for a long time, my dad received a call and his face became solemn. "Aria booked a plane ticket to Country F just now." After saying that, Sebastian sat up from the sofa. My dad didn't hesitate either. He picked up the car keys and was about to leave. I also followed behind him. Sebastian looked at me. "Go back. Little girls don't need to join in the fun for this kind of thing." I shook my head and insisted on following. Besides, I am not a little girl anymore. After experiencing death once, my mentality is comparable to that of an 80-year-old grandma. Having seen my tragic death, how could I still be afraid of them going to catch Aria? No. Aria has caused me so much harm. If I don't see her being caught with my own eyes, I will die of distress. I hugged Sebastian's arm and acted coquettishly. He had to nod and agree. The journey to the airport was very far. My dad drove very fast. I was a little dizzy in the back seat. Seeing that I was uncomfortable, Sebastian pressed my head on his shoulder. "Closing your eyes will be better." 20 minutes later, I arrived at the airport. The police cars almost arrived at the place simultaneously. After getting off the car, my dad greeted the police. Looking back and seeing me being supported by Sebastian, his eyes lit up. "Cough, Sebastian, take good care of Ophelia. I'll go find someone first." Sebastian nodded and slowly walked forward while dragging me who was retching. There were many people and eyes in the airport. Because of motion sickness, I could only sit at the door and wait with Sebastian. Sebastian held water in one hand and supported me with the other. He sighed, I just said not to let you follow. But you insisted on coming. Now, you have motion sickness. I whined coquettishly, woo, my head is so dizzy. He helplessly gave me a blank look and then started to massage my temples. I closed my eyes and didn't feel the vicious gaze behind me at all. Ophelia! Behind you! My dad's heart-wrenching cry came. I opened my eyes and found that Ivy was actually holding a knife in her hand and was rushing towards me. I quickly pushed Sebastian away. To be honest, after being hit and killed by a car in my previous life, I was immune to any tool that could cause me harm. Sebastian was pushed away by me. At the moment Ivy approached me, I dodged nimbly. She was still constantly swearing, Ophelia, it's you who took away everything from me. My mother was also taken away by you. Why can you still be alive? Why? She shouted behind me while I ran in front. Arya was brought over by the police. She cried and shouted at Ivy, Ivy, stop quickly. Mom was wrong. Don't do stupid things. Ivy continued to chase relentlessly. Police from all directions raised their guns. I also successfully ran to the safe area. Looking at the scene in front of her, Ivy stopped as if waking up from a dream. Then she knelt and sat on the ground. The knife in her hand slipped. She looked ahead with dull eyes. The police then arrested her and put handcuffs on her. I took 2 deep breaths belatedly. Sebastian walked up to me. I couldn't stand anymore and collapsed into his arms. Looking at Ivy's back as she was taken away, I sighed. She is indeed a pitiful person. Her own mother abandoned her and cooked for other people's families for more than 10 years. In the end, she still didn't get a good ending. I shook my head and sighed again. When did I become so benevolent? The mother and daughter of them almost took your life for 2 lifetimes. I slapped myself on the face. Sebastian was stunned and quickly covered my face. What are you doing? Don't do stupid things. After Ivy and Arya were arrested, I never heard any news about them again. I concentrated on preparing for the college entrance examination. After the college entrance examination, my grades were unexpectedly good. It was a full 50 points higher than in my previous life. I danced and called Sebastian, but I heard his sighing complaint. I was shocked. Could it be that he didn't do well in the exam? It's okay. Everyone has times when they don't do well. At worst, I'll repeat a year with you. It seemed that I had made up my mind. But Sebastian smiled. Didn't do well? I didn't say that. Only then did I realize that I had been tricked. I angrily hung up the phone. When my dad learned about my grades, he was so excited that he didn't sleep all night. The next morning, he pulled me into the study and mysteriously said to me, Ophelia, you did so well in this exam. Dad thinks that your talent should not be stagnant in the country. I was shocked. This is the rhythm of letting me go abroad. So Dad decided to let you go abroad. The school has been found. It's the best one in country M. My dad was still chattering on, but I was stunned. Won't I be separated from Sebastian this time? If I go abroad, it's not just a distance of 2,000 kilometers. Dad, what about Sebastian? I asked. My dad didn't hesitate. Sebastian will definitely go with you. As soon as the words fell, I couldn't hear anything else my dad said. Going to college with Sebastian. This sentence repeatedly flashed across my mind. 2 months later, Sebastian and I said goodbye to our families at the airport. At the airport, I suddenly remembered Ivy and others. So I casually asked my dad, what happened to Ivy and them? My dad waved his hand. They have been making sewing machines for a long time. He said this lightly, as if Ivy was just an unimportant person. Hearing this, Sebastian tightened his hold on my hand. At the moment the plane took off, Sebastian whispered in my ear, Miss Ophelia, do you want to have a campus romance with me? I looked at the plane gradually leaving the ground and nodded heavily.